at the situation in Zimbabwe, with experts now joining us live from South Africa. Many thanks for joining us here on Bottomline Africa. Paint a picture for us of what the situation is like in Zimbabwe. If you can hear me, sir, many thanks for joining us on Bottomline Africa. Paint a picture for us of the situation in Zimbabwe now that it has necessitated a crisis mediation.
Yeah, thank you very much, and sorry for that technical problem there. Thank you for having me, and good day to the African people. The situation in Zimbabwe is actually not a very good situation, especially at a time that Africa, we've been trying by all means in the past 60 years to build a democratic society that we will all have a people living and oriented people to participate in the governance of our countries. The Zimbabwean dynamics is not different from the rest of the continent. Zimbabwe has got different political dynamics which intertwines and conflicts itself.
Let's talk about the letter, because you are part of those, members of the Africa 55 states there who wrote a letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa, also the head of the African Union. But why is it imperative for Cyril Ramaphosa and the South African government to take care of the situation in Zimbabwe?
Yes, thank you very much. You remember President Cyril Ramaphosa is the chair of AU, African Union. And I think it's high time that he decisively deal with the Zimbabwe's issue. It's been an ongoing issue for the past 20 years, and I think his predecessors and those who came before him has taken a center stage of quiet diplomacy. Africa 55 states, where I preside as president, we try to assist and influence that the chair of AU now take on a very decisive action in terms of dealing with the Zimbabwe issue. You must remember very well that the Zimbabwean issue to South Africa is not only an AU problem, but it has got a very significant impact into the South African economy. Most Zimbabweans now, they seek refuge in South Africa, and this has given a very bad toll on the economical fiscus of the country in terms of service delivery in clinics, hospitals, and education. And it's high time that instead of having a quiet diplomacy, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, whom I did personally send a letter to him representing Africa 55 states, that he looks at this as a major security and peace problem, in terms of addressing it. Hence, we advise that President Cyril Ramaphosa must organize a panel of people from within Africa and including from the United Nations. And this panel should go and sit down with the ruling ZANU-PF, the government of President Emerson Mnangagwa, as well as the opposition political parties. I've already had a chat with the leader of MDC, Nelson Chamisa, who's got no problems in trying to resolve the Zimbabwean problems, because this is a problem not only for the ZANU-PF or MDC or the African continent, but it's a problem for all of us. And I think they've been inviting the delegations to come to Zimbabwe and resolve this. But my surprise is the two delegations, the envoys who came from South Africa, only met the ZANU-PF and the government, and they refused to meet with the MDC leader. The MDC leader, I think, is championing the alliance of the opposition political parties, and we suspect that this must have been an instruction from ZANU-PF that they should not meet the MDC. This is a problem and challenge of disunity of people not discussing efforts together.
Well, let's discuss what the Republic of South Africa's envoy can do differently this time, compared to what has been termed as a quiet diplomacy or quiet mediation, so to speak, because the human rights violations have necessitated quite a lot of immigrants moving into South Africa because of the instability there. But even in previous years, the government of the day in Zimbabwe has been reluctant to acknowledge the crisis in the country. So what can be done differently?
Yes, taking into cognizance that the bilateral agreements between South Africa and Zimbabwe are very tight, and they've had the relationship for a very long time. But, you know, sometimes it takes the impossibilities to change the status quo. You see how South African government deals with the problems in Lesotho and Swaziland. They are already on the time when there's the impasses and the problems within those two countries. But Zimbabwe has got a different approach. You know, the quiet diplomacy, rightly what you've said, was initiated by President Thabo Mbeki initially, where they, you know, because of this bilateral agreement, they believe and they respect each other's sovereignty, a power that they do not indulge themselves into their country's affairs. But you know, the other problem as well is the ANC government, you know, not really the ANC government, but the ANC as a liberation movement has got very high respect as a sister to a party to ZANU-PF, you know, and because of that sisterhood and comradeship has actually affected their decisions. And we suspect, or we suggest that you know, they need to go beyond those sister brotherhood relationship and comradeship relationship and call a spade and condemn what is actually happening in Zimbabwe, that this is actually taking a very big toll to the South African economy, and it's not even actually good for the health of the Zimbabweans themselves. You must remember very well at this stage, the Zimbabwean government is on autopilot. There's no government there at this stage. President Mnangagwa is alone, and as well is fighting his own conflict within his party, as he's been accusing his vice president of attempting to kill him. As well, the vice president has been accusing President Mnangagwa of trying to kill him. You remember, he must have been out of Zimbabwe from China immediately when ZANU-PF won the last year's elections.
All right, and of course, Zimbabwe's case continues to escalate, but it's not the first one that has happened in Africa. We've seen a similar situation in South Sudan, we've seen a similar situation in Mali, and several neighboring countries there. And when those, you know, situations were unfolding, many said the African Union at those times came off as a toothless dog. Let's talk about your work as the president of the newly established Africa 55 States, as well as the Organization of African Political Parties Forum. How are you assisting the African Union and other regional organizations in maintaining peace and stability in these regions like Zimbabwe?
Yes, thank you very much. I was one of the people who said AU was a toothless bulldog. But after seeing how the system has now, we've come to realize that the only way we can buy the teeth for the African Union, or even if we have to put the false teeth, is by trying to assist it where it cannot. You must remember that the African Union has got agreements with the member states, and the same problem which I talked about regarding Zimbabwe is where they do not go beyond certain agreements in terms of interfering in the country's sovereignty and the governance of this country. Hence, African 55 states and organization of political parties, we've come up to take that up to assist the AU, the region organizations, to make sure that they live up to the benefits and the plight of the people, the individual people. You must remember that AU has relationship with countries, but our relationships is with people. We are a forum for people, so that we advance situations through the people and have the governments as well as the region organizations sit and sort out the problems. One problem with the SADC as well, in our situation where we are in the Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, is that President Emmerson Mnangagwa is the chairperson of peace and security on the SADC organ. So that compromises him as well of trying to even look at his problems in his own country. So these are the issues that we are presenting to SADC. We have already written to SADC that we can't have presidents who are a referee and the player at the same time, you know, to resolve the issues within our continent. I mean, if you look at across the North, South, East, and West, and Central Africa, the all problems are the same. We have adopted a democratic system which does not work for us. You know, even in America, it does not work where it initiated from. Africa now must unite together. They must actually adopt a system that will make sure that it works and that is impenetrable from corruption and other activities. In that way, Africa will be building in a way the way we are going forward. We can look at examples like in Rwanda. How Paul Kagame has welded all ethnicity and all the people of Rwanda. Rwanda now is an example that I'm very proud to give on in Africa, that he has united the people. So can we do that the same of the system, how Paul Kagame, the president there, has done for the rest of the continent?
All right, and just before we wind up this conversation, how easy will it be mediating in Zimbabwe, considering the issue of territorial sovereignty, the sovereignty of a country? We saw Burundi the other day head to elections and chase away all foreign, anybody from foreign countries who came to look at the election. So how easy will it be, considering that President Emmerson Mnangagwa is the rightful president of this country and they do have their sovereignty as a country?
Yes, that's the biggest challenge. The other thing which we face in Africa, especially as organizations who wants to help the member states and the individual people of the African origin, is the where countries, because of their sovereignty power, they decide that this is an internal matter. You must remember very well when the world wanted to assist Nigeria regarding the Boko Haram some few years ago. Nigeria President Buhari came up in defending the country that this is an internal matter. We shall deal it with ourselves. And you see now it is out of control. The insurgents have already taken part of the southern part of Nigeria, and as well they advance into to the northern part. This is another problem which we are dealing with in Southern Africa. Here in Mozambique, the insurgents as well, they are trying to move into Mozambique as well. The Mozambican government is very adamant. They're saying this is an internal matter. Same problem in Zimbabwe. Emmerson Mnangagwa there is saying it's an internal problem, we're going to deal with it. But he has lost the grip and governance of the country. The country, which I know the only country in the world that hasn't got a currency, because of the refusal for the international people to come and sit down and advise them. An advice is something that countries has to take very seriously. An advice is something that the president has to sit down and think about it. It's not that they are imposing your governance or they want to control you, but a little bit of advice from outside within your territory and your comfort zone, that can help somebody or a country to move forward where they are stagnated into slumber. But lastly, as I conclude on this point, Zimbabwean issue, we have heard about how the government of national unity has actually been aborted. You must remember in the 80s, R.G. Mugabe, former president of Zimbabwe, tried to work with the Joshua Nkomo. Ultimately, he died. As well, in 2008, he tried to work with Morgan Tsvangirai from the MDC. It did not work, and eventually Morgan Tsvangirai died as well. So this is a process where Nelson Chamisa says he feels for his safety, of working with people who are trying to poison themselves, and they are not trying to deal with the issues of the country. And I think the only way is for either President Emmerson Mnangagwa to take his pride and either resign from presiding over the country, so that a new caretaker can be come back in Zimbabwe, preside, and within 90 days that Zimbabwe should go for the fresh elections. Otherwise, the people of Zimbabwe must start a vote of no confidence in the president, so that they force him to resign, like what has happened in Algeria and many other countries, because he's failing to contain the problems it is in hard for him to solve.
The situation in Zimbabwe is a developing story. We continue to keep an eye on. Many thanks for speaking to us. That is Dr. Charles Sinkala, president of the newly established Africa 55 States and Organization of Africa Political Parties Forum. Many thanks for joining us here on Bottomline Africa. Let's take a short break here on the show, but do